The Planck Principle, named after the Nobel Prize-winning physicist, is often summed up in this pithy statement: science progresses one funeral at a time. Or, in Max Planck's own words, a new scientific truth does not triumph by convincing its opponents and making them see the light, but rather because its opponents eventually die and a new generation grows up that is familiar with it. An important scientific innovation rarely makes its way by gradually winning over and converting its opponents. It rarely happens that Saul becomes Paul. What does happen is that its opponents gradually die out and that the growing generation is familiarized with the ideas from the beginning. Another instance of the fact that the future lies with the youth. Now, if you're invested in the idea of scientific innovation and being a participant in this process, this quotation could easily make you uneasy. Since if new ideas don't gain traction thanks to their inherent superiority, but rather because preceding generations take their obsolete worldview to their grave, well, where does that leave you? Are your efforts in vain? However, empirical studies have actually not established a causal link between youth and a willingness to accept new ideas. For instance, support for the ideas in Darwin's then controversial On the Origin of Species was not primarily among the young. So perhaps Planck wasn't entirely right. More importantly though, he was right to question our assumptions about innovation. The philosopher of science Thomas Kuhn, who coined the now popular term paradigm shift, drew on Planck's thinking to explain how scientific revolutions take place. According to his account, fields of research periodically undergo shifts such that entirely new approaches to understanding a given field become possible. This process is non-rational, which is not to say irrational. And going back to Planck's point, it is rarely gradual. Understanding the process by which cultures build, dismantle, recycle, and reconfigure knowledge is necessary if your work involves conducting or reading research. Let me give you an example. As a teacher, my interest in research is as a tool for professional development. I'm committed to becoming a more effective teacher, and research helps me achieve this goal. While it's true that many questions in second language acquisition remain unsettled, there are areas where there is an emerging consensus. For instance, most teachers remain attached to a structuralist approach to grammar, which treats grammar as a skill that is developed in a linear fashion. That is, brick by brick, one notion, one concept after the other. You master one and then move on to the next. Still, there's actually abundant evidence in support of a competing account, namely a usage-based approach to grammar, which views grammar development as a circular process, like a kind of palimpsest, a text that you return to, you erase, write over on top of, with traces of the pre-existing text still remaining. Now, if you're not a language teacher or linguist, this may seem as irrelevant to real life as the medieval scholars who debated how many angels could dance on the head of a pin. But if you or your children have ever struggled to learn a language, be it your mother tongue or another language, this debate has real-world implications. How many learners have concluded, or worse, been told, that they're not cut out for language learning? And what toll does this take on their confidence as learners and as people? If you're a researcher, you face two challenges: ensuring your work gets the attention it deserves within your discipline, and also reaching broader learning communities, whether they be in other disciplines, members of a profession connected to your discipline, or indeed the general public. It's with good reason that the current online media revolution, including YouTube and podcasts, has been compared to the advent of the printing press. Not so long ago, the idea of achieving universal literacy would have been considered impossible and even undesirable. In the future I'm working towards, the boundaries between fields of knowledge have become blurred. Interdisciplinary research is the norm and feeds into public policy and the education system with built-in feedback loops. This is not a pipe dream. This is a call to action. In the comments below, write your area of research and a seemingly unrelated discipline that could benefit from your insights. Mention a demographic, a target group that is not part of your discipline, whose attention you'd like to get.